Welcome to the John Jay College of Criminal Justice Graduate Power Interview Series. I am Ms. Purdie. Today, I have with me Dr. Jason Rivera, who is the chair of the Department of Public Management, and Mr. Nico Tyndale, who is a public administration graduate of 2021, I believe.
Yes.
So welcome. Thank you both for being here with me today.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So part of our alumni graduate series, we are highlighting students who graduated from our program and asking them to reflect and give some guidance to students who may be coming into the program in the future. So I'm going to start off with you, Dr. Rivera, and ask you to just tell us a little bit about yourself and what motivated you to become the chair of the Department of Public Management?
So again, my name is Jason Rivera. I am the new chair of public management as of July 1. My background is in public administration, public affairs. My formal degree has a specialization in community development. But my research and practitioner experiences are in emergency and disaster management. And that's predominantly what my applied research is in. I got interested in becoming a larger leader in our department structure because I really wanted to have an impact on the success of our students, the future of our students, the future of our discipline. And John Jay has provided that opportunity not only to work with wonderful faculty, but also wonderful students like Nico, who really make it a joy to not only teach them, but also look in a future direction on how we can enhance the things that we're doing for people like him.
In full disclosure, I was also Nico's major advisor, and he transferred to John Jay and just hit my office like a hurricane one day. So, Nico, tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you've done since you graduated in 2021.
My name is Nico Tyndale, as everybody has heard. I am a proud graduate of CUNY, John Jay. I currently work in the people management industry. Since graduating, I have, went into various fields from HR to, administration under various sectors. But also, as Ms. Purdie highlighted, I did hit her office like a storm. I remember that summer when I came into her office and I said to her, how can I do this program in 1 year? And she's like, this is a 2-year program. I said, watch me, Ms. Purdie, I want to do it in 1 year. And I never stopped. She was a great source of encouragement and has been a person who has made sure that along the way, every guidance I needed, she was there for. So I really appreciate it.
Yes, he absolutely did finish the program in 1 year, which I was amazed at all the work that he did, but he really did it. And then he went on to graduate and left our department for a minute. Just for one quick minute, tell us what your master's degree is in.
So after completing my master's, I then pursued my bachelor, sorry. I started my master's in emergency management, and I also did that in a year. Because I believe that if there is time that can be used in education, why waste it? That's just me personally. I do support all my peers who go the longer route, and I'm always there to provide support. I do at this time still speak to some John Jay fellow students who are in the various programs, including the emergency management, including public administration. And I do encourage them also to move on to their masters, because again, the opportunities are out there for us. They're hard to find sometimes, but it's just dedication and time. And, that was just my personal passion. And again, I want to diversify my experience. So hence, I did my master's in a different field, but also still interconnected with public administration.
Thank you. So, Dr. Rivera, as the chair of the Public Management Department, your department has 3 majors. criminal justice management, public administration, which we're highlighting tonight, and fraud examination and financial forensics. Can you tell us about how the program, a little bit of the composition of the students in the program? Are they full-time, part-time? Are they online? What kind of goals they have?
So we have predominantly most of our students in the undergrad public administration program are in-person students, relatively speaking, but we do have online components and hybrid components occasionally. Again, the current program is developed to really facilitate traditional in-person learning. However, we do provide, again, some online options. What I would say is, in relation to the composition of the student body, we have a very, very diverse student body in relation to race, ethnicity, gender, but then also other types of identifications and identities that students prescribe to, right? Religious identities, political identities, and affiliations and ideologies. We really run the gamut in relation to what students can be exposed to in the classroom between their peers. And I think that is an exceedingly important characteristic of John Jay, or any college or university for that matter, right? Because the idea of bachelorette in education is the free flow of ideas and learning from one another, right? Many people grow up in a relatively close-knit social development situation in which you're exposed to things, cultures, ideas similar to what you've been raised to believe by your immediate family or your social group. When you're placed in a diverse classroom like you have at John Jay, you're exposed to other interesting things from people that you never even thought of. Things that you may have thought were odd, or possibly you were initially opposed to ideologically. You learn more about that. You typically respect where people are coming from, if you don't necessarily agree with what they're saying or doing. And so I think that kind of generally talks to the diversification of our student body. But we do have a lot of students that are both full-time and part-time students. And many of our students are full-time working adults that do have a lot of obligations outside of the classroom. So as Nico had pointed out, some people like Nico have the opportunity and ability to get through programs very quickly. And then others do have obligations that kind of put bounds on how quickly they can get through a program and the attention they can provide in relation to other priorities.
And Nico, as an undergraduate student going through the public administration program, what stood out the most to you?
Coming from a social service background, prior to even know what social services was for me, I grew up in the Caribbean. I did a lot of community-based work, both in my community and with the organizations that serve the community. I found the need that there was a gap when I moved to the United States many years ago, that there was a gap where I thought that I could be instrumental. So when I started looking to go advance my career and my education, public administration stood out to me. And again, I have to give it back to you, Ms. Purdie. You're the one that advised me to, you're doing public administration. You're going to finish this course in a couple of months. How about adding another unit to it? And then I minored in criminology as well. Both programs provided, I want to say, a wealth of knowledge and experience that I could use my social service experience, coupled it with the industry of public administration to serve a community that I was working in. For those who know me, I've worked in in the social sector field for a while, serving disadvantaged people in various categories, from homelessness to those that are housed but are struggling with various mental health challenges. So that propelled me in a particular way to continue the work I wanted to do in that field until I changed my career in recent months. Like Professor Rivera, I too also started on the very same day he started his new position. So I guess we're running in similar path. So yes.
Nice. I didn't actually know you started the same semester I started here. That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
I did want to mention, since you pointed it out, the notion of one of the things I like about our student composition is that many of our students either directly move to the area to take part in John Jay from abroad or from other countries, or they're from initially other countries and they had emigrated here at one point or another. And what I love about teaching students in that regard is seeing how what we talk about in public administration across a whole host of agencies like nonprofit service provision or just general public service provision, how different it is in comparison to the way we think about them here. And what I love is when students are able, like Nico and others that we have, to talk about their experiences and talk about how things are done in other places so that other students in class can hear that. I think it's utterly important, especially for our students some of our students that are not able or have not had the opportunity to travel to other places in the world are exposed, at least indirectly, to what's going on and how things are occurring. So I really thank you for bringing that up.
And I want to just add to that comment that, Professor, I still call you guys professors, as you will always be my professors, is that, a lot of us students who are at John Jay have been exposed to a lot of these things. It's just that we didn't know what they were until we were doing the formal training or the formal educating aspect of it. And we could relate to some aspect of the lesson that was being taught or the assignment that was given that, oh my goodness, this was something I was doing or had experienced in for the last 10, 20 years of our lives. So that was an eye opener for me as a student at John Jay to know that what I was learning was something I've actually done, but didn't know that there was a formal process in the learning curve of it all, or a formal process in how to make this a life experience or a career out of it. So that was a very big eye opener for me growing up and also learning at John Jay.
Now that leads me to another question for you, Nico, and that is, what do you know now that you wish you had known when you were going through the program getting your bachelor's degree?
Oh goodness, there's so much things I know now that I did not know. One of the things I'm going to start off with is how supportive John Jay has been. The resources, that they have provided to us students at John Jay. I lacked a lot of knowledge, and we take for granted, especially in Professor Rivera's class, the use of grammar. He's a very strict grammar person as it relates to our papers. We text a lot, we use slangs a lot, but we take it for granted that when we start in a formal institution that we're supposed to bring that same outside world in. And when I got my first paper from him, not that I got a bad grade, but I was like, oh my God, I got an 80. I think it was an 80, or he gave me, and I was like, why am I getting an 80? And I went to him and he highlighted some things that I did not know because I didn't have that foundation initially. And it drove me to do better in making sure that my citations were correct, in making sure that my punctuations were correct, and utilizing the resources that John Jay provided on campus, along with reaching out to other persons who are in the academic field in making sure that they were overlooking my work, because support is something that is needed when you're a student, especially one that is trying to, set an example for your peers or set an example for other students to come into the program. There's a standard that we all have to meet. And I had lacked a lot of knowledge on the basis that I did not know what it was to go to college prior to coming to John Jay. I went to CUNY throughout my career, through my education process. I did all my degrees in CUNY, and I encourage everyone to do that. Not only it was affordable for me, but the support that I got from everybody there was great compared to other universities that I hear my peers who are going to, and they're not getting that support. So that's something I have to highly promote, and I highly do that. I've had friends who went to BMCC as well, who wanted to start their degree, but they did not want to dive into a 4-year program. That said, start with a 2-year one, and then from there build their way up. And they've done that, and now they're at John Jay and Hunter doing their academic programs.
You just mentioned that you transferred to John Jay from BMCC. What was it about John Jay and his public administration program that made you wanted to transfer to John Jay rather than some other school?
I think for me, I love the campus. The campus was beautiful. I think if I'm being honest, that was one of the things that caught my eyes. It was central. It was easy to get to from home for me if I needed to be on campus. But also the staff from day one when I got accepted at John Jay, and the phone call that I got saying, "Hey, this is what you need to do. We're going to walk you through the step." They were there 100% with me. If I called, I could get somebody on the phone, and if I had a specific question related to my application or my program, I was able to get that answered within a few hours. Via email, via the live chat system, or even by just coming on campus and being directed to the right person. Hence how I met you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Now, Dr. Rivera, are there any specific skills and knowledge that students obtain in the public administration major that will help them in their future careers?
So one of the skills that Nico has already highlighted that I kind of
He's a hammerhead for it.
yeah, there you go. Very emphatic about in my classes is our writing skills, right? And so Nico makes a very good point in that today, a lot of the time, we as individuals speak to each other very informally, relatively speaking. We tend to use text messages, and more younger generations are conflating the use of text speak or writing text messages similar to how you would write a paper or how you might write an email, for example, right? And so really working on what formal writing should be, really getting into students' minds around the importance of why you should write grammatically correct, or why citations are important, or why you should write differently than the way you speak. And again, anybody that's ever met me in real life will tell you the way Dr. Rivera talks is very different than how Dr. Rivera writes. And that's very important, right? Because the audiences that we write to ideally are decision makers, policy makers, managers that we have, our supervisors, and we cannot come across uneducated or even give the perception that we don't know what we're talking about. And so having those writing skills provides us and provides students the opportunity to really say things or make statements that, quite honestly, are very, very brilliant things to say. But if they're not construed in a particular way in writing, they can be often marginalized, right? And so when we write, or we try to train students on how to write better, sometimes there is a learning curve, and sometimes people are used to doing things the way they have always done. And as Nico pointed out, in some cases, they may not have ever been told that this is the way you should go about doing things. And so sometimes that can be difficult, but it is a needed tool.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would say is important, which is also another skill set that students don't necessarily love, and they avoid my classes whenever they can, are research and quantitative reasoning skills, right? Although I would be the first to say these are not the most quote unquote fun courses to take topically, they are also the classes in which skills or skill sets are developed and learned and developed, which are also the most marketable skills, arguably, when you graduate. Being able to say that you are proficient to a certain degree in statistics, or even designing and working and developing a research project. These are marketable skills that can be taken not only to the public sector, but the nonprofit sector, and across a variety of different specific topical areas, right? So Nico mentioned the notion of working with public services and social services. But again, in that regard, there's a variety of different things, homeless services, there's child protection services, and a variety of other things that these skill sets are necessary when you're dealing with those agencies. And the last thing I also would mention is learning social skills, right? Which I would also say that we as a program and also a school are working on. How do you train students to better interact with other people in a way that is not only respectful, but also carries forth the proper professional etiquette that we need or people look for in public service institutions. These are not always the things that we do on a regular basis or we are socially exposed to growing up. And so being able to understand and navigate those social spaces in which public administrators or public servants need to actually participate in is exceedingly important. And these are the things that we try to impart within our programs.
I want to also add, Professor, one of the things that I've learned a lot from your classes, and hence why I took it a second time, is doing research, as you've highlighted, is something that I learned to do not on a surface level, but more so on an in-depth level. But also reading, my uncle always said you need to learn to read with understanding. And, a lot of times, we read something, we have a basic knowledge base of our concept, but to have a full understanding of what we were reading was never something that we were either taught from at home or in the communities that we grew up in. So learning that in your course was a very big step for me in doing in-depth research. And today, in my field of work that I do now, I have to do in-depth research, digging for information on a basis and not just looking at just the surface of what it is, but also to find what we're not seeing. So that is something that I have to give you my hats off to you, because I learned that and I keep that today, in my courses and in my line of work that I do now, to do consistent digging to make sure that I'm not just looking at the data that is just presented, but also trying to find the data that I'm not seeing or the data that is there that is not being read, and then interpret that information and then present it to my peers.
Well, thank you so much. I love hearing that. I really appreciate hearing that. I love when students take my research methods classes and they say, Dr. Rivera, when I had it, I hated you. It was the most miserable experience I've ever had in my life. But working in whatever job they're in, they're like, I can now see the value of this. And so thank you, Nico. I really appreciate that.
The first 2 weeks, I will say I want to throw my hats off. But after that first grade, and then we had a conversation about how I got to that grade, it really opened my eyes, and I have to give you thanks because it allowed me to do better. I think I got hundreds after that. I don't think I ever got another grade in the 80s after that course, and I was just beating on myself. I'm like, oh my God, this professor hates me because I didn't finish coding his entire paper, which was one of your research papers. That was the story I was telling myself. And after a while, I said, you know what, why complain? It's not going to do me any justice. I need to do the work and do it right. And I dug deep and put my foot in the sand and did what needed to be done. And I can't say I regret any of it at this time.
Dr. Rivera, how would you answer the question if you were to speak to a student? How would you answer why complete the degree in public administration? What would you tell them that they need to do to complete the degree?
Well, I'm sorry, can you repeat
Why
that?
is it important for them to complete the degree in public administration?
So for all the reasons that I believe I and Nico had really just said, I mean, we provide skills, provide knowledge that is transferable to, quite honestly, the workplace, any organization you might work for, right? So it doesn't matter if it's in the Department of Education. It doesn't matter if you're a teacher. It doesn't matter if you decide to go into the nonprofit sector. It doesn't matter if you actually decide to go into the private sector. A lot of the skill sets, the majority of the skill sets that we provide exposure to students on, these are all transferable. They also make for better general citizens of the country, right? When you go through our program, you understand what the expectations of society from a governmental perspective are, why it's important to understand the ongoings of government, the ongoings of public service agencies and the like, and even the nonprofit sector. But you also learn, well, how do all those things actually mesh together? And quite honestly, public administration education really ties together all of those things deliberately because they are all an interconnected world, right? We cannot say any of either the private, the nonprofit, or even the faith-based sector operate in silos. They operate very similarly. Yes, there are specific things and ways in which they are different, but there are a lot of things that transfer across. And so for any student, I would say, if you're looking to have a degree in which you can market it and position yourself in a way that you can work in almost any agency or any sector, I would argue that public administration is one of those fields.
And I would like to support that from a student point of view, Ms. Purdie, is that when you think about public administration, it doesn't just goes into the corporate world, it goes into our home life. It's about how we communicate. It's about how we relate. It's about how we apply what we know from the outside to the inside, whether it's on our job, whether it's in our home, whether it's within our family or a community. It's a lifestyle. I want to consider it. And if the more we apply to that, because that's how I do it, is the more beneficial it has shown to be, not just for the people we're serving, but also for the work that we're trying to accomplish. It's not just a degree that I say to people, don't just go for a degree because it's easy, but go for a degree that's going to be practical. Go for a degree that you're going to love doing what you're doing because it has given you the skill set and the tools for it. A lot of people I've come across in some fashion, so I'm just looking for an easy program to do. And I always say, is it going to be worth it at the end of the day? Because it's easy. What's the challenge? Where's the challenge? What's the learning, tool that you're going to get from it? And at the end of the day, is it going to benefit you for just doing a degree because of what? A paying job? Great. But how is it applicable to what you need to do in the future and how it's going to benefit those that need to be benefited from?
You actually just answered my last question, which would be to give a piece of advice to a prospective student. Is there anything else you would like to say to a student to encourage them to go into our program, to come to John Jay College, to meet their advisor, Ms. Purdie?
Yes. Three things I'm going to say, or maybe a few more words than that. One, do it because it is something that you want to do. School is not going to be easy, and I'm not going to tell you it is, but it requires dedication. It requires motivation, and I'm not talking about motivation from your peers. Sometimes you have to self-motivate yourself. It requires a sense of commitment. Don't start the program and then, because the first professor gave you a low grade, you're going to be, quit. I'm going to switch courses. I always tend to rate my professor. And every time I see a professor has a low grade, that's the professor I go to, because guess what? There's a reason why everybody thinks that he's not the best, but then maybe that's not the truth. Maybe you're just giving up too easy. Don't give up because it's easy, or too hard rather, but push yourself to the limit. I've taken a lot of professors who people would have thought that, oh, he's always failed, everybody's taken his class. And to be honest, I've never had that experience with a professor who have gotten that rating on Rate My Professor. Because that's the tool that we as students use. But I also use it as a way to challenge myself. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be that one student that I'm going to pass this course. I say to myself, don't aim for the A pluses and the distinctions, but aim to learn something at the end of the day by passing your classes. And don't focus on the grade so much, but focus on the lessons that the grade is teaching you. So that's my advice.
Thank you. This is it for us tonight. I want to say thank you again and congratulations on your new job, Nico. Thank you, Dr. Rivera, for staying late to be with us tonight. And until the next time.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.